Welcome to Cinecynics.
I'm Mark.
I'm Craig.
And just remember, if you're stranded on the ocean in a lifeboat with a Bengal tiger, all you need to develop a sense of understanding between you and that ferocious cat is good communication. And a gun. It's been reported that Bill Murray is finally on board to reprise the role of Peter Venkman in Ghostbusters 3.
This is very exciting. He couldn't give out for much longer, so I think he called up Harold Ramis or Dan Aykroyd really late at night and said, yeah, I give up. So, great news.
I'm happy it's getting made like most other remakes or sequels from things of 30 years ago. But considering the difficulty they had getting everyone on board with this film, it makes me a little trepidatious about the results and whether or not everyone actually has, whether they all have their heart in it.
An announcement teaser has finally been released for Star Trek Into Darkness.
Yeah, this trailer looks pretty awesome. Benedict Cumberbatch as Khan looks great as well. J.J. Abrams' first Star Trek movie is what finally made me into a fan of this franchise, so I'm definitely looking forward to this. And finally, it's been announced that director Kevin Smith will retire after he makes Clerks 3.
It's a very sad thing, he hasn't had a lot of great success in recent years with a lot of his movies, but it's going to be really sad to see him go, and I can't wait to see Clerks 3.
With all the Star Wars headlines making the news lately, I thought I'd take the opportunity on this week's Watch It to recommend my personal favorite of the original films, The Empire Strikes Back. This might seem like a bit of a waste, considering just how indomitably popular the Star Wars franchise has become. But there are those out there who have never seen the classic trilogy, and I pity them. After suffering a crushing defeat at the hands of the Rebel Alliance, which culminated in the destruction of the Death Star space station, the Galactic Empire, as the title suggests, strikes back, driving the Rebel Alliance from their base on planet Yavin 4 into the far reaches of the galaxy, where they eventually set up camp on the frozen wastes of Hoth. However, their location is soon given up when a probe droid lands near their icy encampment, and a battle ensues, forcing the rebels to flee once more. Our group of core protagonists now end up scattered, with Luke Skywalker off to pursue his training from the sagacious Jedi Master Yoda, and Han and Leia racing across space, trying to evade capture as Darth Vader and his fleet remain hot on their tail. The Empire Strikes Back is easily the most pivotal of the original saga in terms of plot and storytelling in the way it shapes the destinies of all the characters, and also the richest emotionally, as it brings to bear the full weight of what this conflict is costing all of those involved. In my opinion, this film is what cemented the cinematic legacy of Star Wars for all time. See it in its original version if you can, because while it remains the most intact through all the various revisions, The Empire Strikes Back is a masterpiece of 80s cinema, and it deserves to be seen as it was first intended.
Castaway, directed by Robert Zemeckis, stars Tom Hanks as a FedEx executive whose plane crashes and he gets washed ashore onto a deserted island in the South Pacific. We then see a man transformed emotionally and physically as he lives the trial set in front of him. For there basically being only one person for most of this movie, it stands to be a tremendous feat in filmmaking and character study. Not for 1 second do you feel weird or awkward listening to one man talk to himself for 2 hours. The whole film could be taken as a metaphor for the loneliness we all feel when we face the crossroads of life. I love this movie because it shows how the human spirit, even in dire straits, can survive a horrible situation, and how in some way we've all gone through some trial and tribulation that we can all live to tell about. The Life of Pi, directed by Ang Lee, adapted from the novel Life of Pi, stars Suraj Sharma, Irfan Khan, and Rafe Spall. After the ship carrying Pi's family and the animals from his father Zeus sinks, Pi struggles to survive with a Bengal tiger on board a lifeboat. So one of the most remarkable things about this movie is the beautiful CG and just the expansive water scenes that they were able to create through computer-generated animation, which was amazing.
It's funny, if you look at films from 20 years ago, like T2 or Jurassic Park, that CG holds up better than movies we see being made today, and that's kind of sad. CG is something that seems shortchanged in most movies today when that should be forefront, and the work that we see in the work that we've seen in Life of Pi is top notch. All the animals look absolutely real. There were scenes when I couldn't tell the difference, especially with the tiger.
None of the scenes with Pi in them had a real tiger.
None.
None. Absolutely none of the scenes had a real tiger in it with Pi in it. So that's pretty amazing, I have to say. I think the only scene that they had a real tiger in was the scene where you saw him in the zoo. And you saw through the cage.
And I couldn't tell the difference between then and the scenes later on the boat with Pi and the tiger. The post-production 3D on this movie wasn't really impressive, but at least I have to say that it didn't make my eyes hurt, and it did have its moments.
The story itself was actually very, very compelling, but there was some moments with the young Pi character within the lifeboat with the tiger that just kind of fell flat for me.
The acting of the young Pi is easily the most glaring flaw in this entire film. I suppose you could chalk that up to the fact that this was Shiraj Sharma's first feature film, but I really think Ang Lee should have cast someone who could have underpinned this whole story more convincingly.
Yeah, and when you have one main character for most of the movie, and he's not delivering quite enough of a performance, there's something wrong there.
Yeah, I mean, for what he was able to accomplish, and again, considering it was his first role, was impressive, but still, for the kind of story it was, there wasn't enough emotional impact, and I didn't feel convinced.
What should be mentioned is that the older Pi, the adult Pi, was brilliant. He really brought it together.
Yeah, special mention should be given to Irfan Khan, who really, I believe, saved this entire movie. His performance is what really bookends the film, and it's his performance that really convinces the audience of the toll that Journey has taken on him.
Oh yeah, and just for him, he was just in a few minutes of the movie in the beginning. Was he at all in the middle, or was it just completely young Pi?
There might have been one or two cuts when there was a break in the narrative.
But for him not being in most of the movie, he was the most compelling character.
Yes, less than 10 minutes of the movie.
One thing I really enjoyed about this movie was the organic music. It felt so real and it had that Indian sensibility, but it wasn't going too far to be completely, completely culturally Indian, and it had Indian influences is what I guess I'm trying to say.
It had all the vibrancy and liveliness that you would expect from...
And there was a lot of emotional impact with some of the music, and it was composed very, very well.
I think the most compelling aspect of this entire film is the exploration of faith and the role it plays during the most difficult trials of our lives. The believer will take away one message, while the skeptic will take away another. But what is certain is we all experience a degree of providence in our lives, and we should stop to recognize it and challenge ourselves by asking the bigger questions. While Life of Pi has its moments that fall utterly flat, it's the ending that really saves this movie, and the bigger questions it asks, which makes it worth watching.
So what are we going to give this movie?
Watch it. Definitely watch it.
I definitely think you should go watch this too, especially its Oscar-worthy movie, definitely. As a whole. Acting,
Older Pi should be nominated. Younger Pi, you have a while to go. If you like CineCynics, rate, comment, and subscribe.
And for all our viewers, we have a question for you. What's your favorite shipwreck movie?
And stay tuned next week when we rewiew The Hobbit.
Rewatch The Precious's! Yes!